This was the fifth round of the Tepe Sigeman Co Cup 2022. We were covering the tournament. The first two rounds were won by Arjun. Then he lost in the third round to Niemann. In the fourth round, he drew his game against Grandelius. And now this is the fifth round, and he is playing against Jorden van Foreest. Arjun is black, and his last move here was he traded rooks. So the rook was on d8 and he took 2. And so I want to discuss this endgame with you. Try to understand what's happening, what is it that white should be doing, what is it black should be doing. Take your time. Okay, endgames are tricky. This one is tremendously complicated because of the fact that black has an extra pawn here, white has an extra pawn here. So Jorden over here, playing with the white pieces, thought that it would be very useful to exchange his f pawn for the g pawn, which makes complete sense because after take, now the battle is kind of reduced to this side of the board in a way, if white wants to hold this game. So if he can bring his knight back and the king here, this should be a draw. So f6 is kind of reducing the size of the board where the fight is going on, and I think it makes complete sense. On first look itself, you should feel that black is the one who's pushing here, because whenever it's a bishop versus knight endgame and pawns are on both sides of the board, most of the times it's the bishop who is the superior piece. Okay. f6 was played in the game, and if he hadn't played f6 and played king f2, then after king e7 you can no longer play f6 easily, and I'll go bishop c2, attack here. If your king goes to defend it, just for example like here, that's already a bad position, because now I'm going to create a passer here and I'll win the game. So this should be winning for black. f6 takes b4. So what did Arjun do? He fixed this weakness on a2, and his idea is to go here, and if he has 2 extra pawn, he should be doing very well. At the same time, white also wants to push his pawn down the board. King f2, very logical move. Now bishop c2, bishop is going to b1. It wants to attack this pawn from here. Goes knight to d5. Already here, the simplest way to draw for white would have been king e3, bishop b1, king d4, and bishop a2, king c5. Once the king is in this region on c5 and b5 square, the a5 pawn is in trouble, and the b3 pawn on its own cannot create much damage, because let's say after knight e4 or knight d5, I'm going to c3. So if you go a4, I'm going king b4 and winning this pawn. So you go b2, I go knight c3. If you play b1, I will take, and then king b5. So this is a draw. The way in which this draw works is that you come with your king like this, and whenever the king reaches c5, even if black has 2 extra pawns, white should be able to hold. But Jorden played knight d5, and his point was that if you go bishop b1, I will play the move a3. If you take, I will play knight c3. And remember that in a normal game here, if it's a rook pawn, and if the queening square is not controlled by the bishop, and if the white king goes and sits there, it's a draw. So here white is just in time, first of all, threatening to come here and win this pawn, so you get your bishop out. And then I go here threatening to go to this side, so you give me a check. Then I go here threatening to win this pawn, so it's a draw. So that's the reason why this was Jordan's idea. Arjun played a very tricky move. He said, knight, where are you going? And actually speaking, it's not an easy decision to make. Where should the knight go? I mean, you would love to keep the knight close by here, but you can't go to c3, you can't take here. Let's say you go to e3, but then you are blocking a very important square of your own king. And after a4, it is actually black who is completely winning. Like I'm going to play b3 and then maybe this a pawn queens. So here knight e3 blocks there. So Jorden thought, well, why not play knight b6? It's a natural move. But this is also a mistake. The right move and the only move to hold was knight f4. Because once again, you are threatening to come here. Let's say black tries to hold with king c7, king e3, hitting the bishop, bishop b1, king d4, bishop a2, king c5. We know that once the king comes here, it's a draw. So you can try and hold the king off from this side, but then I go a3, b takes a3, and king c3, and once again the king is within that zone and I'm able to hold. But knight b6, why is this a mistake? Because if you were to play bishop b1, then I would go king e3, bishop a2, king d4, and my king is anyway coming here. It's a draw. So, what's the winning move here? Try to think. Well, if you said bishop b1, you are right, but the another move is king c7. Why is bishop b1 right? Which is what Arjun played, king e3. But he had to find king c7 here. He did not play it. He chopped this pawn. Once you chop that pawn off, it's a draw. King has come here. But if he had played king c7 in this position or in the previous one, he's winning because he gains an important tempo on the knight. Imagine now that the knight goes to a4. I take this pawn, king d4. King c6, king cannot come to c5. At the same time, you have no a3 ideas in the position. You have two clear pawns. Black is winning. And you could even start here with king c7, hit that knight. And that is not a good idea. But here's another point which maybe could have made Arjun not go for this, which is after king c7 here, you must have thought knight c4 is a problem. And you know, if you were to play a4, then I can play a3 and already it's a draw. Right? Because if you take, I take with the knight. Or if you play b3, I will stop this pawn with knight b2. So even white can play for a win there. But here's the move. What should black play? Black is winning here. Bishop a2, what a beautiful move, attacking the knight. You take here, and now what should black do? Yes, king b6, attacking this knight on a5. Can't go to b3, can't go to c4, can't go to c6, can't go to b7, knight trap. I think this might be something that Arjun could have missed. Even here, this position, bishop d5 is the move. Because take bishop a2 and the knight is trapped. So this trapping ideas were always there in the position, and knight b6, that's why is a mistake. Bishop b1 by Arjun was right, but here he had to find king c7. The move bishop a2 allowed the white king to advance, and the game ended like this, and they agreed to a draw. The king is coming here, and I can take this pawn. Nothing's going forward. So that's how the game ended. What a beautiful end game that was, and I must say that it was very complicated to find all of this, but Arjun did have his chance to win at some point, but he couldn't take it, and that's the reason why right now in the standings Arjun is on 3 points, let me just make sure that I can pull up the standings over here. Yeah. So this is the playing hall, by the way, of the tournament, and a very nice setup, very relaxed setup that is there, and people can come and watch, and there are a few spectators in the hall. And this is the standings right now. Niemann is cruising towards victory with 2 rounds to go. He's on 4 out of 5. He lost. He started with 2 draws, but then he has won 3 rounds. And Hans Niemann is really crushing every tournament that he's playing. Arjun is on 3 out of 5. He needs to win both his rounds if he has any chance, I think. And his opponents are Adams and David Navara. Both pretty strong players, but Arjun, you never know. Yeah, he can come back, he can strike, and the finish of this tournament will be very exciting. So until then, guys, this is Sagar Shah signing off. I hope you learned a lot from this end game. Take care. Bye bye.